Good afternoon, Westchester. It's 12 noon on this frigid Wednesday, but that means it's time to talk to me, Jen Graziano. I'm a licensed funeral director who oversees my family's funeral homes, Cox and Graziano of both Mamaroneck and Greenwich, and the Zion Memorial Chapel of Westchester. Every Wednesday, I come to you discussing important topics and sensitive matters that all of us need to pause and reflect upon at some point, and through this show, I hope to provide a platform to do so. If you are joining us this afternoon on 1460 WVOX, Gerald in the control room is having a good laugh at my expense this afternoon, but thank you. And hi, Tim Judge and all of our Facebook Live viewers. Happy to have you with us today, talking to a repeat guest, but a great expert on her field, but a very specific and sensitive topic, one that has impacted my family personally. I lost my grandmother to Parkinson's disease. She suffered from this a very, very long time, about 14 years, 16 years, and other family members that I have as well who currently suffer from it. It's really such a horrible disease where you become trapped in your own body and you lose so much of the function, and your cognitive abilities are still there, but you're just a stranger in this foreign body, and your body just starts to fail on you. So Brenda Moynihan, the Director of Marketing and Outreach at the Kensington in White Plains, which is a beautiful facility, a wonderful facility, is here to talk to us a bit about Parkinson's and the approach the Kensington takes to caring for patients with Parkinson's, because this is not an illness or affliction where you can seek care in any type of setting. You really need to be in a specialized place with specialized people and specialized capabilities. So I welcome you, Brenda.
Thank you.
I thank you for being on air with us again. I had heard that you had sent out an email that you were having a lecture, and there was an event dedicated to this topic, and it struck me, and I wanted to have you on prior. It just didn't work out that way. But talk to me a bit about why the Kensington has gone above and beyond in their mission to educate on Parkinson's.
At the Kensington, we actually take care of a frailer population than any other assisted living, both cognitively and physically. And approximately 20% of our residents have what I call movement disorders, including Parkinson's. So we looked at the diseases of the residents that we take care of. We said, you know what, we need these specially trained people to come in and train our care staff on these diseases. So we've had someone come in and talk to our staff about Parkinson's, specifically about that disease.
So Parkinson's disease is defined as a progressive disorder of the nervous system that affects movement. Again, a movement-based disorder. There is no cure for this, and it's really a guessing game of regulating medication.
Right.
And you, am I correct to say that the disease causes the rigidity and stiffness, and the medication prompts the fluidity and the excess movement?
Exactly. What happens, it's actually dopamine in the brain, which because of the disease reduces, and that's what causes the effect of the stiffness, the rigidity, falling, and everything like that. So there are a lot of things involved with that can assist, and medication is very important, especially timing. Talking about people who take their medication to help with those symptoms. A 15-minute, believe it or not, if they forget and take it 15 minutes later than they're supposed to, their condition can come back and exacerbate the rigidity. Yeah, unbelievable.
So you're really dealing with such, specifics here, and again, it begs the need for heightened levels of care and properly trained caregivers.
Right.
Are we in the realm of autoimmune diseases when we speak of Parkinson's, or
I think it could be part of it. I mean, unfortunately, they're making wonderful strides, but there's nothing that they can pinpoint when someone is young to see, wow, you've got that.
There's no genetic markers, and there's nothing.
No, nothing yet.
Oh, right. And again, I remember drawing on my own family experience, like we talked about before, that they say it's non-hereditary, but they offer different reasons, and who knows if they're all educated guesses at this point. Some of the notable symptoms when you see a Parkinson's patient, we have the tremors, and one of the most common characteristics begins in the hands. I had read something once that it's often kind of a rolling of the thumb movement or a stroking
Pill.
of the thumb.
Right, or that pill rolling, if you take your forefinger and your
Yes,
thumb,
yes.
that kind of pill rolling also. Not just the tremors, but that pill rolling.
Yes,
Very
yes,
common.
that's exactly what I had read. A slowed motion, and the term for this is bradykinesia.
That's correct.
And it causes difficulty with voluntary movement. So I guess would it be more your slowed walking, slowed movement, slowed speech?
So think about it. You automatically, you walk, you don't think about it. Someone with Parkinson's, they may slow down or they may stop because the brain is not telling the legs to move. So there's a disconnect there.
Okay. Rigid muscles, impaired posture and balance, speech changes, and loss of automatic movements. Again, these are just some of the symptoms and the effects of those who suffer from Parkinson's. It's a chronic disease. It does worsen over time. And again, that medication is constantly changing. So the prescriptions that you're starting off with, do you find these changes would, usually, are they yearly? Are they biannually or much more frequent?
It really depends on the person. We had a physician, we did a live webinar last month and we talked about that. People think, well, now I'm taking the medication and I have to take more or I have to take it at less time intervals, meaning, if I took it at 10 and 2, now I have to take it at 10 and 1. It's because it's found through research, it's because those people were diagnosed earlier. If you're diagnosed earlier, taking the medications, the ramifications are very different than if you're diagnosed later. So that's really the reason why. It's not because, well, the medication is less effective. It really depends on when you're diagnosed.
Do you find in your work, your experience, among the possible reasons for a later diagnosis is that the onset could be so seemingly insignificant to somebody that they might not think of it. They might not think to go for help. Again, if you find yourself experiencing, let's say, the pill rolling, you can chalk it up to something that's becoming habitual. Or if there is some cognitive loss and memory loss associated with this. You can chalk that up to, all right, I'm a year older, I'm stressed. Do you just find that they're easily overlooked symptoms at the early onset because it doesn't come on strong and fierce? I don't believe.
I think it depends on the person and how aware they are of their body. Someone who is very aware, all of a sudden they've lost their sense of taste. Or as they're progressing in the years, they're losing their sense of taste. Now they're having difficulty walking. So someone who is very aware will be more apt to take action and go to the doctor. But as you said, there are some people who just chalk it up to other things.
Yeah. Maybe you always look for that alternative.
Like the other medication I'm taking, or I'm stressed, or something like that.
Right. Yeah. And again, dementia and significant memory loss. So do you find that patients with Parkinson's acquire a form of dementia at some point afterwards? But the Parkinson's is the precursor. So there is a link
absolutely.
to that.
We see that statistics have found at least 50% of those with Parkinson's, advanced Parkinson's, will develop some sort of cognitive impairment like dementia. Some in their advanced stage will hallucinate because of the dementia, so it's very common.
So I think if you have someone, yourself or someone that you know and love or care for, that has been recently diagnosed, as hard as it is, you have to think of what comes next. You have to think about the long-term plan. And you have to do that early on so that you could thoroughly do your homework, do your research, and you don't find yourself in that situation where, let's say, your spouse or your parent or your aunt or uncle, they can't be alone anymore. They can't be in the home anymore, and now you're scrambling. You don't want to do that.
Absolutely.
Because you don't want them in just any type of skilled nursing facility.
Well, you want to make a plan.
Right.
And really it's as soon as you get that diagnosis. Your symptoms may be in remission or they may be very, very mild now, but you've got to think down the road. And if, as you said, if you're the caregiver, if you're the well spouse, you want to look at particular things like, is my loved one, are they taking their medications? Look at the home, look at their hygiene. You want to look at those things, but you really need a plan upon diagnosis so that, as you said, you don't wait until a crisis occurs and then you don't know what to do.
And it's not that you need to remove somebody from their home immediately, but when you know the prognosis, you want to make sure, again, you have a place in
Right,
mind.
and there's a lot of different options out there. But
Right, but again, I mean, it's time for now to heighten the specialized care. Frequent falls, again, I mean, that's something that a person with Parkinson's is so prone to. I just remember my grandmother was a short woman, and actually as the disease progressed, she became a very thin and frail woman. At the end of her life, she was bones, I'd say, in the last 10 years. And there was a different physical makeup to her. The disease had really withered her away so much. But it was assistance to go from the kitchen chair to maybe, the other side of the kitchen, and it was two people holding her. So it does become something that you can't live alone. You cannot live without somebody there.
Absolutely.
And as small as she was, just to physically lift someone is very difficult.
Right.
Because if they're on the floor, that you have to be moving in a certain way to be able to
not
lift
injure
them.
yourself.
Exactly. So all things to think about. And I think most people are very well intentioned. They want to keep their loved ones home, and they want to be the caretakers as long as possible.
Right.
But you have to be mindful of the reality and the logistics of the situation.
I agree. I mean, think about it. If you're the caregiver and you work full time, what happens those 8 or 10 hours when you're not there?
Absolutely.
If you haven't hired help or thought of the next step, your loved one could fall, or are they taking their medications? Are they eating? There are a lot of things to think about.
Brenda, I know a lot of research and a lot of findings suggest the nexus between exercise and movement to Parkinson's. And it's hard to reconcile sometimes, because when you're imagining the Parkinson's patient, you're thinking of either the rigidity or the hyper continuous movements that come on. So how does exercise come into play? I even had a guest on the show years ago at the other radio show suggesting boxing was a wonderful exercise. Can you speak a little bit to the benefits of exercise?
Well, with exercise, think about it. You are, especially if it's cardio, you're increasing the blood flow to the brain.
Right.
Wonderful. You're increasing muscle strength, which helps with Parkinson's, because remember, those with Parkinson's, they have weakened muscle strength. Also balance, very important for Parkinson's, those diagnosed with PD. You want to maintain balance as long as you can. So exercise does all of those things, and not just cardio, Tai Chi, yoga, things like that. Absolutely. And also reduces the stress.
It's true. I mean, there's exercise triggers off endorphins in our brains, and
Absolutely.
We're dealing with a truly neurological condition that's having impact on our body. So you certainly can understand why it would just have so many benefits. I want to talk about depression, because that just goes hand in hand with this, and not just to the patient themselves, even to the family that's caring for them, but for a person diagnosed with Parkinson's, watching their body fail them. Depression is so common. How do you handle that at the Kensington? What support is offered, and what do you find tends to alleviate that depression?
Good question. First of all, we want to get a physician on board.
Okay.
And whether it's a neurologist or the PCP, primary care physician, and we want to make sure they're on the right meds. In reference to depression, it might be just, as we were talking about, exercise. Exercise helps to alleviate some of that depression. So it's not just medication. Perhaps the person may need meds, perhaps not. But we also have all these wonderful wellness classes to assist the resident with the movement disorder like depression. Tai Chi, we've got meditation, we've got cardio. We also have rehabilitation. So think of the person who may need some assistance getting their fork to their mouth, bringing the food to their mouth. Assistive devices could help with that. Well, if you've got a device that is helping you, then you don't have to rely on another person. So that also helps with the depression. So there are a lot of things that we do at the Kensington to assist with that.
And getting back into, again, having the proper people around you.
Yes.
You have people at the Kensington who are recognizing these signs and symptoms and taking note and ensuring proper steps or to help minimize or alleviate some of that depression.
Right.
I like something that you said in your notes. It speaks to you. You're very funny. I enjoy our conversation. But you say, think twice about hiring your sister's friend's hairdresser. I mean, that's kind of like blanket advice for everything.
Absolutely.
Everybody said, it's such a running joke in my office when they ask for something. I'm like, I got a guy. I know a guy. or I know a girl, but you can't just get anybody to care for. Sometimes people just think, I have someone who's in the home. It's an extra body in the home.
Right.
Why not?
Well, I mean, think about this. If you only need someone to be there with your loved one, maybe just to cook and do some cleaning and things like that, that's fine to get a companion caregiver. However, a licensed agency, their people, first of all, they have liability insurance. So think about if you just hire, your friend down the street, what happens if your friend falls? What happens if this person, it's a snowstorm, they can't get in? You have no one else to rely on, or if they fall, of course, they'll be suing you.
Right.
A licensed agency will provide a backup. So let's say you've got a caregiver, an aide that comes to the house on a regular basis, but for some reason they have another appointment. The licensed agency will provide a backup for you. So I think it's very important, not to mention, with the licensed agency, that person has a background check. They've been fingerprinted. Really important. So even though your sister's friend's neighbor's wife may be very nice, you don't really know, right? Her background or anything about her.
It's so, nice isn't going to get you very far here.
Exactly.
It's someone to talk to, so you're not alone in the house.
Right.
But again, like I said, to lift someone off the floor, it's no matter how frail or small, it's very difficult.
Right.
So
and I mean, in a licensed agency or a location like the Kensington, the staff have been properly trained in body mechanics, how to lift someone, how to transfer them. The sister's neighbor's friend, you don't know. And what if they injure themselves?
That's one more thing that you have to add to your list of worry there.
Right.
In terms of payment, sometimes that's the immediate fright, and it's so understandable. The cost of healthcare is very high. Medicare only goes so far. There's a lot of misconceptions about how far Medicare goes.
Right.
So talk a bit about, staying at home and how to pay for the care and the non-care necessities.
Okay. So when it comes to Medicare, if you're 65 or older, they will pay for some of the durable medical equipment, such as a wheelchair or a hospital bed. But if you think about the person with Parkinson's who may need a ramp or a whirlpool, they will not pay for things like that. So they will, as you said, they will only go so far. But there are other options. If you want to remain in your home and the disease is not advanced, because I truly believe if it's not that advanced, you should remain in your home.
I agree.
With care. If you've got a life insurance policy, you can convert that to pay for care in the home. A reverse mortgage. You can take that money and get a caregiver. Again, a licensed caregiver would be my suggestion in the home.
A license is so important.
Absolutely.
And if you take away something from the show, take away that, especially when you're dealing with Parkinson's, not just anybody, folks. So
Right. VA aid and attendance. We actually spoke about this I actually had
we
a prior
did.
show. Yeah.
Yes, in your prior show.
Absolutely.
Because I didn't even know about this. Can you remind people?
Sure. So if you're a veteran and you served during any war, there's money set aside by the government that you could get this money towards your care, whether at home or living in an assisted living. There are parameters, of course. If you make too much money, for example, you wouldn't get this. But wouldn't it be nice to get approximately $2,000 a month towards your care?
Anything would help, I'm sure.
Would be wonderful.
Absolutely. No one's in a position to turn that down. So there is a financial, like you said, a financial qualification to the veteran household. And then tax credits. Talk about tax credits.
So if you are caring for someone with Parkinson's, many of those expenses associated with the care are tax deductible. So again, my suggestion would be to contact your accountant or your attorney to figure that out. If you're caring for someone with PD, Parkinson's, you may be able to get a tax credit.
Wow. And again, this is just one of those things that you don't know unless you know. So education is key. So wonderful, viable options. You also mentioned Social Security disability insurance, simply referred to as disability. These are for individuals who are of working age and can't work as a result of this. Parkinson's doesn't necessarily affect the aged and elderly.
Right, exactly.
It's something that you could absolutely acquire in 40s, 50s, 60s. So it's not necessarily a disease that inflicts us at a much older age.
Right. I mean, I would say generally 40s to 60s, but there are young people that get it, they're diagnosed at 10 years of age.
Oh my goodness.
10 years of age.
Wow.
So absolutely.
Wow. And then respite care, talking about the caregivers. Caregiving is just, caregiving's not
Consumes
easy.
you, absolutely, exhausting experience. But there's assistance out there. There are several different organizations, for example, that have grants that would give you money so that you, as the caregiver, would get a break, so to speak. So you
To be able to have somebody come into the home and
Exactly.
relieve you. And even if it's to relieve you to sleep or, run out and get a manicure or get a cup of coffee or lunch,
yeah.
you cannot adequately take care of someone unless you yourself are
Right,
taken
that's
care of.
correct.
And it's and you don't think that when you're in that role of caregiving, you just think you can keep going forever. But it does start to have an impact on the person you're caring for.
I mean, my suggestion again would be do your homework. Again, before the crisis occurs, once the diagnosis occurs.
So you find someone you would feel
Google,
comfortable.
Absolutely.
And then clinical trials, again, it's such a game with medication in this. Are there much more options out there, clinical studies, clinical trials for Parkinson's, or any major breakthroughs?
I don't know that there are major breakthroughs. They're out there. Again, if you do your homework, and even if you Google Parkinson's Association, for example, they may have a trial in the area. You may get a medication, you may get the placebo, you don't know. But if it's something that alleviates the symptoms and it's free,
then
that's
try
the key.
it. No, absolutely. There's really nothing to lose at that point. But again, these are all for people, up until that last part with the trials, we were speaking about staying home and the caregivers. There are other options. There's the adult daycare option. That's, when you're not ready necessarily to fully remove from your home, but the care just can't get in during the day. Adult daycare is a viable option, but it's limited. Am I correct? I mean, there's not a ton of adult daycare programs in the county.
There are really good programs, but as you said, they are limited. Some of them are 5 days a week, some are 6. But usually they're from morning, 8 a.m. until maybe 6 p.m. Well, what happens after 6 p.m.? So for that caregiver who has to go to work, it's a wonderful option. The person would actually go somewhere, usually get picked up. They're doing wonderful activities, they get meals, and then they're dropped back off at night. But it gives that person a chance to go to work. But then at night...
And then their work begins when the person comes home. And then assisted living. So the Kensington is an assisted living facility. As you say, you have the ability and you tend to care for a more frail and advanced illness population.
Right.
Is that something that has always been at your hallmark and you were known to do? You've just always had that capability there?
Yes. Even before we opened, with the owners, we knew we would take care of a frailer population. That's our model. And also have 2 separate dementia floors because, again, we're talking about Parkinson's. Half of those diagnosed will develop dementia. So many of them will need a separate dementia area. Yeah.
Having visited the Kensington with you, I can also just speak briefly. It is a beautiful facility. It's a beautiful underground gated parking facility, very safe. You're on Maple Avenue, Maple Avenue, right next to White Plains Hospital, a block away. But it's newer, beautiful dining facilities. You see the residents eating together. So you certainly have created a nice atmosphere. It doesn't beg that old notion of the drib and dreary
not sterile
institution. No, not at all. It's beautifully appointed. And like I said, the convenience alone to drive into a parking lot, gated, secure, go right up that elevator, that's an amazing feature.
And in the heart of White Plains.
Exactly. No, it's very true. White Plains is not bad, but you do sometimes, even leaving White Plains Hospital, sometimes at night if I'm visiting someone, I'm a little, leery, especially if you're by yourself. But I credit you for that. I do think that's a distinction there that you should, recognize. Do you find that the overall number of patients who suffer from Parkinson's has increased significantly over the years? Does it make up more of your...
I think we're more aware.
More aware.
We're talking earlier about diseases and how in the past 40 years ago, maybe they weren't diagnosed, people were dying much younger. I think that we're much more aware. And, I've got residents living with me that are younger, in their early 60s.
That's
with
so
advanced ED. Yeah.
I want to share your contact information as we're quickly coming to a close, but again, mention that among the services that you will offer, and again, what we're stressing is if you have received this diagnosis or you are in the early stages, it's not that you're being grim and saying, oh my gosh, this is the end, what do I have to do? You want to maintain optimal quality of life And that's what it's all about. The
Right.
quantity needs to be matched with the quality. So looking down the road for what the next step would be, doing it while you're of more sound body and ability is key. You offer choice of luxury apartments, environmental features such as the automatic doors, motion detector lighting, things to assist with everyday life, just
right.
to make it better. A nursing care staff, again, specialized in Parkinson's disease. You don't want to go anywhere.
Right.
You want to go where they know what to do. 24 hours licensed nurses on campus, individualized care plans. How can people get in touch with you at the Kensington, Brenda?
They can call me at the Kensington at 914-390-0080 or go onto our website, www.thekensingtonwhiteplains.com.
Thank you so much. I hope people took some of this great information today. For anyone out there who suffers from this, either yourself or someone in your family, you certainly have all of our thoughts and prayers. I know it's rough, everyone, but keep faith, keep hope, and do everything you can to make sure that your time here on this earth is as well lived as could possibly be. This is Jen Graziano thanking you for taking the time to listen as we took the time to talk. I thank you, Brenda, for coming back. We'll have you back again. Have a great day, Westchester. Bye-bye.